Well, hello there, guys and gals. Welcome to Miyagi Mornings, episode 6. We finished our first week, and things seem to go pretty well. I put out the Miyagi Mornings recap podcast on Saturday. Got a lot of great feedback on that for people that maybe don't really want to watch videos and would prefer to listen to it in podcast form. And again, for those of you that are watching the videos or listen to the podcast and are thinking, man, I'd really like to share some of this stuff with friends or family or whatever, but I don't think they're ready for an hour and a half podcast, send them one of these 6 to 8 minute videos. So today what I want to talk to you about in Miyagi Mornings is the value of land. And not from a standpoint of it like a direct investment. Like real estate is a good investment. We'll talk about that in the future, I'm sure. I'm talking about the value of land as a homesteader, where you can do things like you see behind me here with this beautiful backyard pond and these gardens. And this little garden area here that's it's just really not very big. It would fit in most suburban backyards. Some suburban backyards, it might take up most of the backyard, but it would fit in most suburban backyards. Produces more food than my wife and I can actually consume. Right now we're deciding what to store, what to give away, and what to feed the chickens at the end of our season, or at the end of our summer, fall season anyway, as we go into winter production with different crops. That type of thing. And what I really want to talk to you about today is we're heading into Thanksgiving. Right, so we're heading into Thanksgiving. This is where we get all this nostalgic talk about how the Pilgrims came here so they could have religious freedom and all, and they did. That's certainly that particular colony that's famous for Thanksgiving is well known for the fact that religious freedom was a big part of their motivation. But it wasn't their only motivation. And you know, the people that came here on the Mayflower are not the people that built America. There's some of the people that survived that first winter anyway that helped to build America, but thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people came here from other places throughout, our colonial period up until our revolution, and then continued to come thereafter. They came here not so much for religious freedom, but for freedom, to have freedom. And one thing that was more free about the United States at this particular time in history than just about anywhere else in the world was that an individual could own land. In fact, it was only due to slavery that the words were changed from life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness to life, liberty, and property, a la John Locke. That was the original statement, life, liberty, and property. And we knew, the founders knew that this could cause some problems when they were trying to unify 13 colonies with different opinions on slavery and humans being property. But life, liberty, and property. The right to own something and have it be yours. This is something that, because most of the world today, you can own a piece of land or you can own some things and they are yours. They might be taxed, but they are yours. We've lost track of how important it was at the time that this country was founded or this area was settled by people from outside of it, that property rights were recognized. If you lived in England at the time of like the 1600s that we're talking about, 16 and early 1700s, and you were a commoner, it was impossible for you to own land. You might be able to be some sort of farmer or agriculturist, raising sheep or something, leasing land from a monastery or from the king or using lands of the commons, but you couldn't have your own piece of land. You couldn't have 40 square acres of dirt for damn sure. But people could come to this country and they could work really, really hard, almost slave-like, in the cities and towns with whatever they could hustle. But they could save up some money over a year or two, head a little bit further west, and own something that was their own. And that's why they came here. This is the most American thing in the founding of our when people talk about traditional values, is the right to property. Today, many people think that they own their home, but they don't. And I'm not just talking about the leveraged debt against it. I'll let that go for this discussion. I'm talking about they live in a place where you can spit out one window and hit one neighbor's house, spit out the other window and hit another neighbor's house, spit over the back fence and hit your other neighbor in the head. You don't have any land. You live in a place where you have an HOA and some Karen with blue hair can tell you you're not allowed to plant that particular plant in your front yard, or your car is too old to be in your driveway, it has to go in your garage. You don't own land. And I could keep going, but you get the point. You don't own land. This is why I've been advising people for a very long time, long before the cities were on fire. Get out of the cities. And I don't mean go out in the middle of nowhere. I am only about 45 minutes, actually 30 minutes from downtown Fort Worth right here. But I'm just far enough that nobody bothers me. I'm in an unincorporated part of the county. I don't really have a city or a town that I live in. The only thing that you need a permit here to do anything about is when you build a house, you need a septic permit, and then they never come back ever again. I don't even have building codes. So when I want to put in a chicken coop, I put in a chicken coop. When I want to put in an aviary like the one behind me, I put in an aviary. When I wanted to put in a greenhouse, I put in a greenhouse. Why? This is my land. This is my property. I get to run it the way that I see fit. And until I do something that harms my neighbors, it's nobody's business. In fact, if one of the neighbors didn't like what I was doing, but I wasn't actually harming them, and they called the sheriff's department would say, we don't do that. I've already talked to the local deputies for the area. That's their response to stuff like complaints about, junk in a yard, or they don't like the way the grass looks. Or we don't do that. And what I'm suggesting is when you have land like that, then you can feed your family. And this is what I'm looking for in a piece of land. One, I want to basically be able to do what I want. Number two, it needs to be shaped right. A half acre is a pretty big piece of land if it's a square. It's a pretty small piece of land if it's a narrow rectangle or some kind of weird hexagon or something like that where it's hard to actually utilize the land. So you don't have to have a huge piece of land. If you want to get 300 acres, God bless you, go for it. I love that. I mean, I wish I had 300 acres, but 3 wears my ass out. And I do most of what I do on about an acre of ground. An acre of ground is kind of a sweet spot, but anything above a third of an acre, and then at least have some trees around you, not be right adjacent to your neighbors, and be able to do the things that you want to do. Then make your land productive, make it so that it produces something for you. We call this going from home to homestead. People think of their homes as an asset. If your home doesn't produce anything, it's a liability. If all it is a hole into which you throw mortgage and tax money every month, and it gives you nothing back other than 4 walls and a roof, you're nothing but a renter on the bank's land. When the land produces for you, when your home produces for you, then you've got something. Then look at energy efficiency and energy production and energy backup. We can't get into that today, but minimum a generator and a battery backup system, and then start looking toward putting your own solar in and things like that. I can't do it where I'm at because they said. That's why you're in the wrong place. That's why I'm telling you to get out, okay? They've made off-grid living illegal. No, the town told you can't have a solar panel or you can't disconnect from the grid. I don't even want to disconnect from the grid, but I sure as hell want the right to generate my own electricity. Then get some livestock. And I'm not even saying in this order, right? Livestock of some sort. But here's the biggest thing, and the reason I want you to get out of the cities. What good does it do you if you can create this like homestead in the city type situation, but you're a novelty and nobody else is doing it? You'll never produce everything that you need, and you damn sure will never produce everything that you want. The way that we make this work is we form networks and communities where, hey, I don't have time for rabbits, but I get a neighbor that's taking care of rabbits. And that neighbor gives me some rabbit meat and some manure for my garden. And I give them some duck eggs and maybe some production from my garden. This is the way things were. Let me tell you something. They say that America was a nation of farmers. That is way too limiting to understand what America was because we could own property in America. America was a nation of entrepreneurs. Farming was just the primary means of entrepreneurship, and every farmer had other things that they did to both earn money or to create barter value. That's the real value of land. And if where you're living, you can't participate in that, you don't own your land owns you. With that, hope you enjoyed today's episode. We'll catch up to you tomorrow with another one.